I know when you eat healthy and you exercise, you feel better. And I would imagine that, can tie in somehow with your sexual health.
It's really funny. They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what happens in the bedroom really doesn't stay there. It affects everyone's whole life. And I like to talk about sexual health a little bit throughout the ages, because we're talking about women's health, and sexual issues are going to change as a woman's age changes. It's not just try not to get pregnant, try to get pregnant, try not to get pregnant. I mean, that's the sequence. But for instance, there are a couple of things I'd like to point out. I think one important thing for young women is to make a decision early about whether or not they should have an HPV vaccination. Now, HPV stands for human papillovirus, and the reason that's important is because that virus is now associated with cervical cancer and with venereal warts. Now, these are two very uncommon and they're very common and very unpleasant situations, but it's a sexually transmitted disease.
Okay.
Now, there are vaccinations for women who have not yet begun to become sexually active, and this allows them, by taking this vaccination, not to be at risk, at least about 90% not to be at risk for those two conditions. So,
if I can interrupt there,
yeah.
I have twin girls that are 10 and a half, so they're going to be coming into puberty. When would you
that's the
start?
question, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a delicate question. You asked something that most mothers ask, and I'm glad that you did. Because a lot of people think that if you, in fact, raise this question with your daughters, you're like saying, okay, I know you're a sexual being, you're going to be sexually active, I give you permission to be sexually
kids,
active.
Yes.
It's all part of how it's presented. It has to be presented in the context, you're going to get your vaccination for the measles, and you're going to get your vaccination for the mumps, and now there's another virus that they also have. It's called HPV, and we're going to make sure you get your vaccination. My main issue here is to raise the point that this is out there. It has to be something you think about. Another thing I'd like to raise in terms of consciousness is the concept of date rape and the concept of rape in general.
Right.
Right now, 1 in 4 women on college campuses is having either date rape or some kind of unwanted sex. 1 in 4.
That's unbelievable.
And so what I would say is that there has to be a discussion. There must be a discussion about the risk. There has to be the awareness. There has to be the understanding not to get yourself in a situation that's awkward. If you are in a situation where people are drinking too much and people want to, start to act a little bolder than they might, or you may act a little bit less wise than you might,
right?
Then it's something to be aware of ahead of time. The other thing is that I would encourage you not to have a drink, even if you're having a soft drink, but I would encourage you not to have drinks, leave them sitting around, and then come back to that drink. Because people put medicines in those drinks that can lead to...
I have heard that. I have friends with college students, and
I have patients who have children from those unfortunate situations, and so
Scary.
I'm telling you, these are not just concepts, these are realities. So if you're going to be at a place like that, finish your drink or put the drink down, go up and get another one.
That's a wonderful tip.
Well, we talked a little bit about, what it's like for younger people, but I want to make sure that we talk about what it's like for women as they hit 30 and beyond and so forth. And the reality is that at age 30 and beyond, there is some decline in libido or in sexual desire. It doesn't happen like that. It's more like that. And of course, a lot has to do with who your partner is. Whether it's a man or a woman, it does matter who your partner is as to how enjoyable sex is. But one thing I do want to say is that sexual issues are something that can be talked about with your doctor in the context of a doctor's visit. But here's the reality, that in surveys, time after time, that they interview like thousands of people. And even though about half of people will actually have some kind of a sexual issue, and for women it increases from about, it almost doubles between the beginning of menopause to the end of menopause. Even though that's the case, only a small number of women will actually talk about it with their doctor, because either they think it's embarrassing,
right,
they think the doctor may not be interested, or they think that there's not enough time. So if you have something like that that's on your mind, make sure you talk about it. make sure that you raise the point, and if there isn't time in that particular visit, then schedule a time to come back so that you can address it, because this is an important problem and it is something that can be treated and dealt with if it's an issue.
You're right. It is difficult for women to bring that up, and that's just, we should. Can you share some information on sleep? I know that's a huge issue.
Right. Sleep is like one of the biggest problems in this country right now. There's over 70 million people in the United States, 70 million adults, many of them women, who have too little sleep. And sleep is not just an issue about being tired. The reason I want to talk about sleep is to frame it in the context that people who don't sleep enough have an increased risk of high blood pressure, an increased risk of diabetes, an increased risk of obesity.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because when we are sleeping, the body makes a hormone called leptin, L-E-P-T-I-N, and leptin suppresses appetite. So if you don't sleep enough, you don't get enough of the hormone that turns off your appetite. At the same time, when you don't sleep enough, the hormone ghrelin, G-H-R-E-L-I-N, ghrelin, is increased. And that's something that stimulates you to want to eat sugary, sweet food. So you've got two things happening. You're no longer full, and you're stimulated to want to eat something that is sweet.
Chocolate. I know women love chocolate.
Well, they like that with or without the sleep.
But I can blame it on lack of sleep
Blame
now.
it on the sleep. And so the thing I want to say is that if you do have a sleep problem, again, talk about that with your healthcare provider, because there's a lot of sleep aids, but also there's a lot of sleep things you can do, like making sure you get to sleep at the same time, using your bed only for sex and for sleep. Don't work in your bed. Don't watch TV in your bed. Do those kinds of things. Don't try and be on a computer with a bright light or a TV late at night. Try not to eat or drink caffeinated foods late at night. Things like that. There are things that you can do.
I think those are wonderful ideas. I agree with you. I do not like a TV in the bedroom. Don't think it belongs there. I think one in a house is plenty. So thanks for sharing that. What about genetics?
Genetics, I think, is becoming a very important issue for women's health. And the main thing is, if you are a woman who has a history of breast cancer, in particular, or ovarian cancer, these are two very important diseases for women's health. And there are genetic markers for them. There are genetic tests, like the BRCA, the breast cancer. That's what BR stands for, breast, CA, cancer. So BRCA1 and BRCA2. These are tests that you can have done to see if you are at a particular increased risk. Now, this wouldn't be just random.
Right.
This would be if you had a family history that was very strong.
Okay.
And also now, what you're going to be finding is, even on the internet, there are increased genetic tests that people can do on their own. There's companies that are formed that you just send in a saliva test and they do your chromosomes. So we're going to be getting more and more information. Be aware of this. Talk to your doctor about anything that could be inherited. If you have a family history of colon cancer, breast cancer, family history of ovarian cancer, any of these things that run in families, talk with your doctor about it. One final thing is, if you are pregnant, you must have folic acid. You must have folic acid at least 6 weeks before you try to get pregnant, because if you don't have it already in your bloodstream, then your child is at risk for what's called a neural tube defect. That's a spinal bifida, where there's a problem where the spine is exposed and so forth. So just that vitamin can help prevent that particular problem.
That is fabulous.
Have to be on it before you actually conceive.
No, I never knew that. That's a great piece of information. Everything today is just absolutely fabulous.